Julian, we've gone from doing these in studio to now you're at home doing it on Zoom. I mean, next week, should I just ask you to send in a statement at this point with this team being 1-11 with 5 games to go?
We could do that, but because it's a little bit later tonight, that's why I decided, all right, let's just do it from home. But next week with the 1 o'clock game, the rightful starting time for Carolina Panthers games, I'll be right back there in studio with you.
Hey, man, home is a good option. No worries. Let's talk about this Panthers team on the road for 3 straight weeks. This was the 2nd straight week, obviously first one under interim coach Chris Tabor. Let's talk about 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 to effectively end the game. They needed to pick up a yard, and they had 2 plays to do it, but passed the ball 2 times despite running the ball well all game. What did you make of that sequence?
It didn't make any sense at all, and it proves that you can fire Frank Reich, you can change the play caller, but the result is still the same. It's unfortunate for this team that I give Chris Tabor and this staff credit for, and the players, obviously, for being able to rally this week and to be competitive in this game against Tampa. And once Tampa went up by 2 scores, it felt like the game was going to be over. But to be back in position to win this football game, and for Thomas Brown to decide on 3rd and 1 after Chuba Hubbard had rushed for 5 yards on 1st down, 4 yards on 2nd down, and to take the ball out of his hands and to put the ball in Bryce Young's hands, and then to do it again on 4th down. I can understand, okay, why not try it on 3rd and 1, then 4th and 1 when the game's on the line, hand it back off to Chuba Hubbard. It's dumbfounding. I just don't understand. And this is a larger issue the Panthers have had all season long, where we've talked about finding a running game for Bryce Young. They did that today. Chuba Hubbard had 104 rushing yards on 25 carries. He was excellent, and he was not given the opportunity to help his team win the football game when it mattered most, because the play caller, Thomas Brown, decided that they wanted to throw the football. So I don't understand it. And it's mind-boggling, honestly, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Brown, his first game back calling the plays. The offense is really his now with some input from Jim Caldwell. What did you make overall?
Well, up until that point, I liked what I saw. They ran the ball more than they passed it, 34 rushing attempts to 31 passing attempts. I never understood why this was such a pass-happy offense, considering the offensive line's inability to protect Bryce all year long, the receivers not named Adam Thielen's ability to get open and make plays. I like what I saw. This looked like more the team we saw a year ago when Steve Wilks took over and they changed the offensive philosophy to be more of a downhill running team. And that's what this offensive line does best. They do not protect well. Whether they have their starting guards or not, this is not a team that you can drop back 40 plus times and have success. And honestly, in the NFL, I know it's a pass-happy league nowadays, but you have to be able to run the football and be able to be balanced. And we saw that today, where the passing game, it still struggled at times with the mix of run and pass. It was productive. And it just doesn't make sense with the game on the line why you don't go to the one area where you had the most success today. The second time this season, Tampa has given up a 100-plus yard rusher. The Buccaneers were down to a safety, having to play linebacker because of injuries, and you decide not to exploit that when the game's on the line. So overall, I thought he did a fine job, but this is what people are going to remember him for. And only about 5 more weeks of Thomas Brown employed here in Carolina, and this is a part of the reason why he and Frank Reich will no longer be here come the new year.
We saw flashes from Young, the throw downfield to Chark, a couple other throws, especially on the sideline, the 2-point play where he ran it in, but we saw some more of that rookie stuff, the throw behind the line of scrimmage, the interception on 4th down. I mean, do you think he's getting better, getting worse, staying the same? Option D, we just don't know. Like, where are you at with that after 12 games?
I still feel like it's a lot of the same, and we just don't know. The pass behind that went out of bounds, fortunately for the Panthers, is just a product of a guy who does not trust what's in front of him, does not trust the guys out there helping him as receivers. And that's one of the bad habits that we're seeing Bryce Young pick up. And you hope whenever the Panthers bring in a new coaching staff next year that he's not going to have that be the case for him next year, that he's not going to have those habits still lingering into next season. And the interception on 4th down, I mean, I just went over it. That's on the coaching staff. That's not on Bryce. He has to go out there and try to make a play. Maybe he should have thrown the ball quicker at Adam Thielen, and the broadcaster is saying that he was open. Okay, sure. But also, he should not have been put in that situation. I blame that on coaching. And you look at Bryce Young's performance, well, it's on coaching. And David Tepper clearly blamed it on coaching. And even though he wouldn't give us his reason behind firing Frank Reich, we know it's a lack of development for Bryce Young. So I felt like today was a lot of the same. It was good to see him competitive in this game. But at the end of the day, it's a failure by the coaching staff. And that has been the case for all 11 games he started, and for the 12 games so far this season, as Panthers set at 1-11.
All right, let's stop talking about this specific game, if we can.
Yes,
let's
please.
just go a little more global. Not that it's any better or much better. Ejiro Evero, defensive coordinator, who we think has done a standout job. Another performance, worthy of a win again today. Is there anything you make of the fact that he reportedly was not asked to be interim? In my mind, it might help him in his candidacy for this job or others by not being the lead of this team for the last 6 weeks.
I do appreciate you bringing up that report from Diana Rossini of The Athletic. And she mentioned that a year ago when Ejiro Evero was in Denver with also a defense that was outstanding. At least that one was top 10 and healthy. But this defense has done a very good job considering the injuries that they've had this season. But he decided to turn down the opportunity to be the interim head coach last year because he did not feel like it was a good situation. You look at the Panthers at 1-10 with 6 games remaining. And if they go on to lose all 6 or go 1-5, still have a brutal record, I don't think he wants to have that on him. So the situation in Denver with Nathaniel Hackett last year wasn't great. Look at the situation here in Carolina now at 1-10. Well, now at 1-11, 1-10 when he would have been potentially asked. And I also look at it as David Tepper. He interviewed Ejiro Evero back in January to be the head coach, decided that he was not the head coach. So I did not think 11 months later, David Tepper was going to admit his mistake by not hiring Ejiro Evero and asking him to be the interim head coach. Chris Tabor, safe choice. He's done it before. For Ejiro Evero, this didn't even feel like, based off of the reporting from Diana Rossini, that he even would have been interested in this job. But he's going to be interested in outside jobs when the NFL hiring cycle opens up. And I think he's someone who absolutely should be atop a lot of lists, especially for owners that aren't myopic and believe that you can be a defensive coach and be able to lead a football team. We've seen down in Houston with D'Amico Ryans, he's a defensive coach, and he hired an offensive staff that's done a really good job with C.J. Stroud. It looks like David Tepper is once again keen on hiring an offensive coaching staff. We saw that worked out for him back 11 months ago.
Okay, so speaking of Tepper, he did not answer a question, about most things, but definitely didn't even say anything when he was asked about GM Scott Fitter and his future this week.
Yeah.
There are some reports that say Fitter could stick around. Others say his future is, quote, up in the air. I mean, we can parse all we want, like which moves were Fitter's, which moves were Rule's, Tepper's, Reich's. Wouldn't it just be best to get a coach and GM here in tandem? Like, do you think there's any benefit to keeping Scott Fitter around going into next year?
I don't, honestly, and the reporting is confusing to me. Let's go back 2 off seasons ago when Matt Rule was looking for a new offense coordinator. Jay Glazer of Fox came out and said that Matt Rule had to hire an all-star OC, or rock-star OC rather, in order to keep his job. If that is the case, why would you keep him around? Now I'm hearing with Scott Fitter, the reporting is that the head coach who gets hired with Scott Fitter, I'd imagine, would be a part of the hiring process, that head coach then could decide that, actually, I want to have someone else be my general manager. If that's the case, then why even bring back Scott Fitter at all? Why have Scott Fitter be a part of the hiring process for the head coach? Is the potential that after you hire that coach should say, no, I don't want to work with him. I want to bring in my own GM. Just based off of how the Panthers have performed on the field since Scott Fitter has been here, looking at the free agent acquisitions, the draft picks, the trades, I just don't see how there's much of an argument for him or really anyone who's been in this building the last 3+ years to remain in Carolina next season. So yeah, I agree that they need to wipe the slate clean, hire a general manager first, then hire a coach, and then move forward with those 2 guys in tandem with Bryce Young. And if things don't work out with Bryce on the field, then you get rid of the coach, you get rid of Bryce, you get rid of the general manager, and you start all over again. That's the way I feel like things should go. But we'll see how things work out here with David Tepper, as we know, who has failed multiple times across multiple sports when it comes to his coaching and general manager hires.
All right, dude, it's December 3rd, and we're talking coaching candidates. But, I mean, we were before December because the Frank Reich was fired in November. Let's talk about Ben Johnson, because this dude wasn't just cooking against the Saints. He was whipping up brunch in that early window. 21 points by mid-first quarter against the Saints. Offensive coordinator of the Lions, Ben Johnson. A lot of fans, they're just pessimistic that he won't even come to Carolina. We all know what happened last year. He kind of shut things down in general for head coaching spots. Do you share that pessimism?
Well, you could ask, if he wasn't interested in the job last year, why would he be interested in the job this year, considering the circumstances, and that it's not a secret to anyone out there across the league how involved David Tepper is. I've heard multiple people say the open secret in the league is that David Tepper wanted Bryce Young. And I believe that a lot of people in that building, and there's a consensus that they wanted Bryce Young. But I will never be able to be convinced by anyone that David Tepper was not going to get the quarterback that he wanted. If he wanted CJ Stroud, they were going to take CJ Stroud. If he wanted Will Levis, they were taking Will Levis. If he wanted Anthony Richardson, that's who they were going to take. I will never be convinced otherwise. So because of the involvement of David Tepper, there has to be reasons why Ben Johnson wasn't interested. Maybe he wasn't ready. He wanted to see things through with the Lions, which so far has been a pretty good decision for him. But if someone has options, I just don't see how this is the place that they would want to come to, knowing just how involved the owner is. And he's got a quick trigger finger. So if I'm Ben Johnson, yeah, he might love North Carolina, but I would love the idea of being out in LA with Justin Herbert, an established quarterback. I would love the idea of going up to Buffalo. I wouldn't want to necessarily live there, but I get to work with Josh Allen if Sean McDermott gets clipped. So I just don't see how any coaching candidate, especially someone who's going to be at top of everybody's list, is going to look at the Carolina job and be like, yeah, that's where I want to go. I want to work with that owner and potentially a quarterback that he might not believe in. Like, that's going to be a big part of this. Do the guys who are interviewing truly believe in Bryce Young? They could say they do and then try to move off of Bryce Young, but this is an owner who I don't think is going to allow that to happen. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out, but I would not be betting on Ben Johnson to be the next head coach in Carolina. Money talks, yes. But also, this could be his only opportunity to be a head coach in the NFL. And do you want to have David Tepper be the guy that's going to be determining your future? I couldn't be me.
I was going to let you go, but I'm told I do need to ask about Jim Harbaugh and Bill Belichick. An obligatory mention there. Older coaches, proven winners, that they want control of the roster. Do you think that's a route David Tepper would and should go?
Well, didn't David Tepper just tell us on Tuesday? One of the things he did say to us is that ideally the next head coach would be here for the next 20 to 30 years and would eulogize him at his funeral. Bill Belichick's 71 years old.
Bill Belichick coaching the Carolina Panthers, baby.
Right, yeah. So Bill Belichick's, he's in his 70s. Is he going to be here for 20 years coaching this football team? He's going to be there eulogizing David Tepper at his funeral. That just and that's the thing about Tepper. It flies in the face of what he just said to people on Tuesday, which is why you just cannot trust this man to get it right. For him to sit there and say he would like to have a coach for the long haul and then to be interested in a candidate who, unfortunately, because of his age, is just not going to be around for the long haul. Now, whoever he hires, that may be the case as well. And most likely, that's just kind of how football works, whether it's at the college level or the NFL level. We're probably going to be back here in 3 to 4 years talking about a new coach anyways. So I don't know. And then Jim Harbaugh was one reportedly who called Carolina and Tepper wasn't interested last year. I would imagine maybe Tepper's gonna be a little bit more interested. But as we've seen in the past, while he got San Francisco to win at a high level, got them to the Super Bowl, back to another NFC Championship game, he wore on the people in that building. And there's a shelf life. They could win for 4 years, but it's not going to be a 10-year marriage between him and Jim Harbaugh. Like, there's still even questions of how long he's even going to stick around at Michigan because of some of his relationships up there in Ann Arbor. I think they would have success with Jim Harbaugh, but it's not going to be a long-term thing. So, sure, give him a call. But I don't know, Nick. Honestly, whatever he does, I'm expecting it to end in failure because that's just everything David Tepper has touched so far here in Charlotte with the soccer team, with the project in Rock Hill, of course, mainly with the Carolina Panthers, has ended in failure. And there's just no reason for me to believe that all of a sudden he's going to get it right when everything he demonstrated from his press conference on Tuesday to his actions following then just demonstrate he just doesn't get it. So who knows?
All right, it's going to be a long December, Julian. But your Tar Heels are in the Mayonnaise Bowl. That's something to celebrate and smile about. Thanks, JC.
Yes. Oh, yes.